Hello, welcome to Her Journey Home. I'm your host, Sophia Graniela. My mission here is simple: to hold space for honest stories and conversations that are usually left unsaid. This podcast is for the women in seasons of becoming, rebuilding their lives, reclaiming their voice, and remembering who they were before the world told them who to be. So come as you are, and let's begin the journey home together. Welcome back to another episode of Her Journey Home. We have an incredibly special guest on today's episode. Her name is Ciara. She's a human design coach. She's also a community builder. And I am so excited to get to know her on a deeper level today. So welcome, Ciara, to Her Journey Home.
I love how many times we've seen each other in the last week.
I just had a human design reading with Ciara a few days ago. And then I was in her Sunday business circle with a bunch of other incredible creative women. So it's really, really nice to have you on the podcast now.
Oh, it's so nice to be here.
So for the first question, I'm really curious. I always like to start out the episodes by getting to know you a bit more and allowing our audiences to understand you on a deeper level. So for someone that's just meeting you on today's episode for the very first time, how would you describe your work, your energy, and the life that you've created for yourself?
Thank you. I love this question. It's funny because when I was thinking about, I'm like, how would I intro myself? I'm like, I feel like it's so tied to even your podcast name. Like, it's really been a true journey home, like back to myself. That has very much been the process. So I feel like we're in the right space to talk about it. I kind of think of it as, I don't know, almost like two different chapters. I spent a lot of time, like probably a lot of us do, for kind of optimizing for safety and doing the things that like made sense or I thought would have a certain result. So I like controlling the grades and doing the more practical business degree and kind of then like fully climbing that corporate ladder for a while. And then I very much kind of got to the top and looked around and realized that I don't know, things were so externally focused that I very much felt, I always use this like kind of comparison, but like this like conveyor belt that I was feeling. And I just kind of looked around and I'm like, okay, I'm heading towards here. But if I look around and where I'm slowly moving towards, this isn't everything that I wanted. So around my Saturn return to my late 20s, I kind of shifted that all around. And if we fast forward, I now kind of have opened a world of first self-employment and then full, like I say, like full entrepreneurship because the things I'm really passionate about. So having community spaces, those have been so big for me. And that's why I have the business circle or now starting to host like human design circles as well, because I think business or like the mechanics of it, using my corporate career for, I don't know, good, so to speak, human design and how it is a system that can really pull us back to our intuition. For me, our natural ways of being and our rhythms, that's been huge for me and also why it's such a big part of my work. And then I think other modalities as well I don't talk about as much, but I also do some subconscious work like psyche and psychological kinesiology is the full name. I do that on myself and I work with clients as that as well. I had my own kind of journey back to myself and I like to support other women and anyone in general to kind of have that path and very much to kind of, I guess, break anything that's preventing you from like, okay, this is possible for me too.
Thank you for sharing that. That's such a beautiful journey. And it's always really interesting and incredible when women come onto the podcast and they're like, well, I'm on my own journey home. And so the podcast name is very fitting. And it sounds like you definitely have been on a journey home to yourself. I'm really curious. I want to go back. You said something about being on a conveyor belt of life, which I really love that analogy. And I'm curious, what cracked open for you during your Saturn return? And maybe even tell the audience, what is a Saturn return for anyone who's not super familiar?
For sure. And I am more human design. I don't know if there's a version of that, like an astrologist, but I feel like the base level is kind of when Saturn goes back through your chart again, around for most people, like 28 to 30. And basically, I'd summarize it as anything that I don't know, that might need to be shifted, that maybe as that conveyor belt that you're doing because you think you should, but it's not necessarily the best thing for you or the most aligned to you, that really lights you up, that kind of gets shaken up and just shifts around. Anything that you didn't, I guess, voluntarily choose to look at kind of comes up to look at you in some way. Not in a scary way, more and I'm like, here to help and support you and like show you another way to look at things. And so for me, I feel like right at the beginning of that, I got this job at a startup, and it was really great because startups like give you permission to do things you like have no right to be doing in some way. And so it kind of broke a little bit of that like corporate bubble, the bigger company path. And so I had that job, and then it just had me start looking at like my relationship and my life path and whether I was traveling or doing things I was passionate about enough. And that's when I realized that kind of the people I was with or the things I was doing, they weren't bad, but they were like good, but it wasn't like great. It wasn't what I had really thoughtfully chosen for myself. I had like one trip where I kind of just came back and switched my whole life around, lived alone for the first time, which I was never done, had some of my own space with myself. And that's when I found a lot of things as well, because I had more space. I learned about attachment styles and relationships. And then I found I like to be magnetic, like manifestation, and learned about kind of expanding what's possible and kind of tests that could be happening in my life. And I also found human design and was really able to understand how my energy worked and, an intuitive decision instead of like an overthought, trying to control what will happen kind of decision. Cause even that startup like went under. So I learned what I had learned from it, and the chapter was closed. There was no runway left on that conveyor belt. So.
Gosh, and isn't that always how it works? It's like we get into these jobs or we do something and we almost settle. But in the back of our minds and on our hearts, we know we're meant for more. We know we're meant to be an entrepreneur. We know we're meant to do other things. And then all of a sudden, universe is like, that company gets shut down, or, oh, you lose your job. And at the time, it feels like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? But it's really just directing you closer and closer to the path that you're meant to be on. And I definitely resonate with a lot of what you said. I feel like Saturn returns always bring a lot of chaos, but oftentimes that chaos then leads us to more clarity. Like I know for me, it was a major breakup, which then led to my sobriety, which then led to me using my voice, then launching my podcast. And it sounds like for you, very similar, right? It's like the startup went under, and then you learned about attachment styles. And then all of a sudden you got into human design, and look what you do now, which is incredible.
No, it's very true. And as you said that, it made me think of too, especially I was always an entrepreneur in companies. Like I was creating things from within it, but I was in this bubble of creating within. And then I think that is the final piece where it's like, even though this was like the best entrepreneurial experience, but then it's like, okay, you've done that. So now we're going to go entrepreneur. We're going to take the training wheels of the company off. So I definitely agree with that.
Oh, I love that so much. And you mentioned human design, of course, because that's your secret sauce, your bread and butter, right? Yeah. So I'm curious, how did you first learn about human design? Because I learned about it probably 2 years ago. And when I learned my human design, a world opened up for me that I never knew existed. And I thought, holy shit, I'm not crazy. Like, this is just part of my makeup. And so I'm curious, how did you connect with human design, and what has shifted for you now that you know your design type?
Well, maybe this will be a moment for someone. I feel like I heard about it on a podcast. Sometimes you don't remember, but I very specifically remember like one podcast led to another. So maybe for someone today, it will lead them down that same journey. But I definitely heard about it on a podcast, and I must have just enjoyed the conversation, or something resonated, something was curious. I was intrigued enough. I know there's a lot of interesting language in it. I'm like, what is this? Like, I need to learn more. There's a part of me that likes to investigate. So I'm like, I have to learn more. And I looked into it, and just finding out, I think for everyone, it can be an exhale for different things. For myself, as like a projector and being like a smaller percentage of the world that maybe uses your energy different, that has more of like an ebb and flow, that was just like a huge moment. It was right at the beginning of my Saturn return that it kind of came in. So it was quite a few years ago. It was like 2019 or so, maybe right before my Saturn return, that I kind of discovered it. And I have been working and living like so at even how my energy, like trying to consistently output every day and getting in this like state of burnout, because I was trying to keep up. Like there's supposed to be an ebb and flow to my energy, and I was like trying to always flow, and then not accepting the ebbs, and then we were never getting flow because I was fighting the whole thing. So I think that one thing just in general, like how I was using my energy, like being able to not be in a state of like perpetual burnout anymore, was a huge one. And I really like how human design looks at decisions, like that we can't make this perfect mental decision. It's just not going to happen. And I feel like in corporate and a lot of life, we're kind of guided towards that, or it feels safer. It feels safer to feel like we're like, okay, well, this will lead to this, lead to that. And even if you consciously kind of believe or something better or something greater, we still have this tendency to want to like guess the ending or reverse engineer. And so I think that just leaning into like, I have like a splenic authority. So like a very like instinctual intuition. And so just trusting these like pangs of things that could happen and not knowing where they would lead me. And sometimes that was like to an event where I'd like meet really interesting people, or I don't know, like a trip where like I fell in love with the city, or just like a person to even connect with. Like I always loved dating apps, and that's how I ended up meeting my partner. But he's the only one I actually had a relationship with. Everyone else, they didn't work out well. And it was like the same story as other people, but why was I so pulled to them?
Yeah, that's
So
so
trusting
interesting.
those things.
Wow. So I'm really curious. I know you're a projector. I'm a
Yes.
manifesting generator.
Yes.
And so people that are new to human design, they might be listening to this thinking like, okay, but what the heck does that really mean? How does that apply in my own life? And you said something important about decisions.
Uh-huh.
I would love it if you could just dive a little bit deeper into the different design types and authorities, maybe just giving a little clarity to the people listening that might give them a little bit of a breakthrough or aha moment about how they make their own decisions in their life or how they live their life or business.
For sure. So it's the energy and the authorities. I feel like there's some
Yeah,
rare
that would
ones
be
that we could
amazing.
do. For sure. So I think that a lot of the world, I don't know if you want me to use all the words too, but a lot of the world, if you are a generator, a manifesting generator, you can really have that energy to like go, go, go. So there's certain things where you're like, I can just like, I can go forever on this because you're so kind of passionate about it. It's giving you energy to kind of show you this is your direction, and it's pulling it away when it's like, hey, you should look at something else, or this is maybe someone else needs to be doing this. Maybe this is not what you need to be doing right now. So it can kind of be like your energy is a guiding post. Then there's the other like 30% of the world that has slightly different ways that they use their energy. So as I was saying, like as a projector, there can be kind of more of an ebb and flow that happens just kind of throughout kind of like certain days or certain times of day. It won't be kind of pulled through in the same way that just because I'm passionate about something, I'll like go deep on it for a certain amount of time. So I think that just kind of trusting the fluidity of it and not trying to do anything different and just kind of listening to myself can be a big piece. And then I have some lovely friends that are manifestors, and I feel like they have those same more than ebb and flow, more like a rocket ship and like a refuel kind of thing. And it's really trusting that too, because they have so much power to start things. And we see some of that starting energy in manifesting generators as well, like to start to like bring things to life. But then if you're having that big output, it's just balance that you need some time to like refuel to start. It's a big thing to go from 0 to 1 to start something. So there's this like natural kind of like recoup time they need. And the same thing, if they're not taking that time, then how are you going to have the energy to start something again if you didn't take a breather? And then we have reflectors too that are, their energy is so affected by like kind of cyclical, like over the month and like what's happening with the moon, and also so much like where it's more empowering to them to like the environment that they're in. And so they can really pay attention to who and what parts of them show up there and how, if it's like feeling like they're, I don't know, in a very intense environment and it's like, you know, you might even see it like physically on their body. That's not going to be the way you want to best use your energy. You're very much going to like have different parts of you that show up in different places. Just kind of like trusting what you feel pulled towards, I guess, as you could kind of say, trusting how you are, and kind of like always like surprising yourself of like who or what might be a good fit for you, and kind of what consistently, I guess, like feels good or that you enjoy. So that's kind of the energy types.
Thank you. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
really helpful because I feel like sometimes people throw around the words,
Yeah.
but if they haven't actually connected with their human design yet or done the chart online, they might think like, okay, that's great, but what even am I? And for anyone
Uh-huh.
listening, you can go online and just type in like, find my human design, and you can fill out your birth date, your birth time, all the information, and it'll give you like a very detailed chart. But at least this episode will give you a bit of a breakdown if you're ever confused on like, okay, but what does that mean?
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think that it's something that it's a process. And the biggest thing I would say is they say it's like an experiment, a human design
Yeah.
experiment. There's a lot of words. Take like one thing and maybe just like even something of like how you choose to have a meal or the direction you choose to walk in, or even if you have something if you're like, this is draining my energy, can you stop it a little? One of my manifestor friends was like, why am I like crying in the closet? And I'm like, well, are you ever stopping? Like, I was like, you're going like 190. Maybe it's like 100 and she's like, oh, okay. Yeah. She's like, we've only been going like barely a couple degrees under 100. I'm like, yeah, that's not sustainable. And then just maybe try, like, can you take one thing out of the calendar and then see, do you like it? Build that trust and okay, doing something differently feels a little more aligned to me. And then that helps you start to like experiment like piece by piece with like a little bit more. So I'd say just like bite off one thing, play with it with something small. If you like it, build it up over time. I mean, some people you might want to just like do the breakup, move to a place or something. But for others, it might feel nice to, I don't know, choose your dinner or your morning activity first before you do that.
Definitely. Oh, that's such good advice. I love that. And then linking to the authority type, is there only sacral and emotional? Are those the two main types?
Those are like a good majority of the world. There are a lot of other authorities that are like mine, like the splenic, the instinctual. As I was saying, like reflectors, theirs is kind of like on the moon cycle. For a big decision, if it consistently comes up for them over time, that is something like to pay attention to. So it keeps being like, write the book, write the book, write the book. Even when they're in different environments, even in different like parts of that, it can kind of be a piece for them to look at. But it can also be to give a little more power, like the environments that they put themselves in can kind of help them look at that as well. And then some people are meant to kind of like mentally process it out. It's not actually coming from the mind, but they almost need to hear themselves speak about it. And in the act of kind of sharing that information, and then it's almost like, I think like like they're hearing it back to themselves, like the way their tone is or what they said. And then there's a level of that. These are all pretty rare, that also the environment that they're in could play out a bit with that. And I feel like, and then some of them, it is from their kind of like heart or ego. And so it's kind of, it sounds counterintuitive to, I don't know, a lot of what we hear, but it's kind of like what's best for them is what's best for everyone, like what they feel pulled to do. A lot, those are like, other ones are quite rare. They could be like a couple percentage of the population.
I'm learning something new on this episode.
But that's why I was like, we go deep into all of them. It's a lot of authorities.
No, thank you for sharing all of that, because my goodness, I didn't realize that there were so many different authority types. And I know for me, at least, when I learned that I was sacral, I know that when I feel that initial yes and my body leans in, that's a yes for me. But I often didn't use my discernment. I didn't trust my body. And so I would make investments and do all these things from an emotional mindset point of almost scarcity, lack. I need to get into this. But it was not that initial yes with my body. And so now that I know I'm a sacral, it makes it so much easier to trust, like, okay, I'm leaning in. That's an immediate reaction. I'm a yes. Or I have to take a step back. Okay, well, then that's a no for me. It has been so helpful with decision making. And I'm sure for anyone listening, you may have experienced that, or you will experience that once you learn your design.
No, it's true. And even if that was a lot of words, I feel like the biggest things is a lot of times it doesn't make sense. Like, as you said, like you don't know why you're pulled towards that. For all of them, it's your intuition. It's just kind of like the flavor of your intuition. And as we know, it probably doesn't make sense, because how are we to guess where it's leading us toward? So that's the piece that anyone could play with. Even if you don't know your human design or your birth time, like sometimes the things that don't make sense, who knows what doors they're going to open, basically.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, I love this so much. So the second thing I want to dive into today is really around intentionally cultivating community, because I know you're a community builder and I was just on your Sunday call, which is the business circle. So I'm really curious, for intentional community, what does that look like in your life right now? Like, especially with traveling or online spaces or friendships. Give us a little bit of a deep dive into that.
Yeah. I feel like for me, this might be for all types, but I see it from like a projector view too, is when I was able to have more like space is really when I was like spaciousness, both in time and in just ensuring that I was very like intentional about like relationships or, events I show up in. It's also helped me find more of that aligned community. Like I know this isn't easy for everyone, so that's why I tried to create spaces too, because back in my job, I was like very into like networking and connecting. So it's a skill I've cultivated, but I've not found it as hard to make friends as an adult, which I say a lot of people do, because I think I've been very, I don't know, open to how that could happen. And this is common, I think, dating advice too, is like do the things that you love to be doing and you'll meet the people that like to do the same things as you. But through a mix of like online communities or travel or showing up at different events or workouts, like even some of those instinctive kind of ping that I would follow to go to a certain city or go to a certain event. And I've met people there that have become like really, like they feel like you've been friends your whole life and it's only been a couple of years just because, you know, you both went to a random spot in Spain with very little information. You're the kind of person that would do that. Or I think for me too, sometimes like I know we really crave in person, but I think to find alignment, like online can be a really great door to open that in person to find at least kind of show, you know, your subconscious, show your nervous system, show whatever, just use a human. Like there are people that are similar. And I find for myself, maybe if travel isn't one of your pillars, it might come up in a different way. Maybe if you both want to be cozy in your home and stay connected, that could work too. But for me, I've actually like met a lot of people from online, like in real life in very surprising and like synchronistic ways. Like my partner went and took a course and like we were in a very small town in Ontario and I met up with someone online who had like moved there and we met in a farmer's market because when I drove through, I was like, isn't this the store she told me that she built? And so I messaged her and I'm like, oh, we're in the same small town. We went up at the farmer's market or like something bigger. Like I was in Paris and I met someone from another online container there. But I don't know, it just seemed like such a, I don't know, movie scene that we're like meeting along the Seine and went to have a cafe together. And she wasn't supposed to be in Paris, but something happened. And so we just kind of met up and we would have just crossed each other as two people walking by if we had been in Paris. But through like our online connections, that's how we were able to, you know, meet up in person. We both happened to be there. And I think that, yeah, it's just kind of been adjusting to the lifestyle. Like I like to travel a lot in the spring and fall. And so that way, when I am traveling, I'm also still connected. Not all of my routes are in Vancouver because if they were, then I would like only be traveling alone or with friends. So I don't know. Those are some of the things that I've played with and it's really worked out for me. And I have the circle online, so I have the flexibility to do that, but it's also for other people that also value that. And then we can have a mix of in person and online and yeah, kind of have a hybrid friendship, I guess.
I think that's the most beautiful blend as well, the hybrid, because I genuinely never thought I could meet such incredible humans just being online, but you end up getting into similar programs or business circles or whatever it is. And all of a sudden you're building this incredible friendship. And then you end up at a retreat together or you go to a business event together. And I've met some of my best friends through online spaces. So you talking about that, I'm like, oh my gosh, absolutely. Because oftentimes I think we only think about friendships in our local communities or close to home. But when you really open up your mind and your heart to meeting such incredible connections online, there's infinite possibilities, especially if you're from, like for me, at least when I was home a couple months ago, I'm from a really tiny town. So my online friendships were what really carried me through because in person, I didn't really have any friends. And so if you are in a small town or you just don't have a lot of friends in your immediate circle, maybe expand into online communities because your people are probably there.
That's so true. Or when you move to a new town.
Yeah.
Like, and sometimes even when you live in the same town, like I have a friend, we live a couple blocks from each other. It's like hard for schedules to line up. So there you have almost, you're very intentional with your online friends. Like one entrepreneur friend, we almost have like a weekly call where we just check in or one that is an entrepreneur. I don't know. I find like a lot of like, you know, voice notes or one friend and I still use that like Marco Polo app where you have the video back and forth with each other because it just works for us. And so I think that, yeah, I'll be walking to Pilates, but I'll be like listening to all my like private podcast voice notes from friends and sending them back. And it's just, I guess there's like some creativity to it, but you end up sometimes feeling more connected because you kind of have to be intentional because you can't just walk down the street or see you on Saturday for a workout kind of thing.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, I love this so much. So good. So tell us a little bit about the business circle. I know I joined a couple of times and it's so beautiful because there's always really amazing women in the group. So how is that circle building that intentional community and what is different about it that really helps women build the businesses that they desire?
Yeah, I love that question. And I kind of have two, well, I have the business circle as like an ongoing membership. And then what you join to, I like to have community circles to offer that same, I don't know, kind of connection and community, even if you're not in there all the time. But the idea of the business circle is it's kind of meant to have the intimacy that you would have in a woman's circle of connection, but this common thread that everyone is a founder and they're looking to build something, they're looking for their business to support their life too. So there is this mix of both the connection and then like the practical accountability. So I think what makes it different is it's kind of like the intimacy and that it's long term. So each circle has less than 12 women in it, and it's really meant to be long term. So even though you can have an amazing connection from, a couple hours, which totally happens in the community circles, by being with the same women for like month after month, the women have been in there in like 6 months, a year. It's only a year and a half old, so a year and a half for the longest members. But you really are there to build things over time and you see each other in different seasons. So every season we kind of set the vision together. We also pull a card to kind of see what we're pulling in. So it's kind of those two worlds. And then we follow up throughout the season and kind of close it together as well. Or I call seasons what used to be quarters because I don't like using the corporate words anymore, but we're going into like a new quarter right now. So kind of looking at that all together. And I think it's the combination of both the practical accountability and then like just feeling really supported because you know each other. And there's such a beautiful variety of like ages, locations, types of businesses. These are some like food for thought invitations. And I'll keep them kind of broad because I feel like that can be so unique to each person. I think one of the biggest things I said a couple of times is like, how can you have like a little bit more space, like in your calendar, in your time, if there's something that you can kind of, I don't know, let go a little bit. And I feel like that's called really, really interesting things into my life. So I'd say either the space or also letting, I find that we can be so like ingrained in like patterns. Even if I said that and you were like, no, I can't because I have to, I have to do all these things. There's nothing I can drop. I feel like what can start to shift us is like something a little bit differently. Like when we are showing up in the same space every day, when we are kind of in such a routine, it can be difficult to shift anything. So one of the really powerful things, if we're feeling stuck and we feel like we want to shift something, is what is something small that you can shift. So even if that's like, I don't know, wearing something differently, like taking a different path, like having a different meal, being in a different space, whether that's like online or in talking to a different person. I had it reflected back to me. I met a new friend of a friend recently, and she's like, I've never met people that are so in touch with their intuition. And I was like, oh, I've never thought of it that way, but definitely if you'd never been around people like that, and like I could see that. And I think it just really shifted something in her because she felt a little bit more stuck where she was. So I think it's these little small things. And I would tie it to human design too, because it's that same kind of experiment. It's like if something isn't working, how can you do something small that will maybe start to open that door up so that you can have something shift? So that could be, like I said, like making a different decision of like the kind of path you take, making the decision that feels a little bit illogical for something small, and then kind of building that up. You could build a trust muscle up over time, or if you feel comfortable, you could, I don't know, you could take a big left turn if you want, like if it's your Saturn return and you feel called to do something. But yeah, I feel like one of the biggest things is that like intentional choice of making a really small shift, and that opens that little glimmer, that little light of possibility. It makes me think of that quote of like, it's like insanity if you keep doing the same thing over and over again and nothing's going to change. And so I feel like the best way to get out of that like insanity stuck overwhelm loop is like, you don't have to fix the whole thing, but what's one small shift you can do? And that can just be like a toe, a hair, a fingertip out of that loop. And then you can kind of build from there if you want to jump right off or just slowly inch yourself out.
Oh, that's such good advice. Because I think oftentimes we want to overhaul everything overnight and just change our entire life. And like you said, if you feel called to do that, then do it. I've done it a couple times and it'll get you somewhere and it'll definitely change things up in a very big way. But I think what you said is very important is like just doing one little shift first. And it's a pattern interrupt, right? Like you said, taking a different walk in the morning, doing a new workout, eating a different meal for breakfast. Like it doesn't have to be this giant thing, and just see how it feels. and then follow the breadcrumbs. And I
Mm,
think once you can do those little shifts and then build that momentum, then they compound, right? The compound effect, and then they create big shifts. And I think oftentimes when we try to do too much at once and it's too overwhelming, then we just revert back to where we were before. And
ex-
then nothing in our life changes.
exactly.
Yeah.
I
So
love
little
that.
steps are always the best. Oh my
Little
gosh. Well,
glimmers.
this conversation has been absolutely incredible. I like to wrap up every single episode with this question, which is, what is one powerful message that you want every single listener to walk away with today?
It's simple, but it's just trust yourself.
Mm. Yeah, I feel like self-trust is the foundation of literally everything in life. If you trust yourself, you will get into communities and circles, right? You will start the business. You will go after the things that have been on your heart that you desire. And the things outside of you, whether it's societal expectations or your friends, your family, will not shake you off of your path because you trust that you can lead yourself.
Mm. No, I love that. There's so
So
many
good.
systems, there's so many things, there's so many tools, but really that's what they're guiding you back to do. So
Yeah.
if you're already trusting yourself, even if it's that, like we talked about, that really small decision, if you trust yourself to move to a new place, trust yourself to, like, I don't know, dye your hair a different color, whatever that is, that's going to shift
Yeah.
something. I feel like, yeah, that's kind of the permission that all of these systems, all of these modalities, all of this like groups are trying to do is just kind of allowing you to trust yourself.
Oh, what a beautiful way to wrap up the episode. And before we go, please let my listeners know where they can find you, where they can sign up for the business circle, and if you're launching anything else in the upcoming months.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm on Instagram and I'm definitely going to be using LinkedIn more too. Been using it casually, but as we learned about on our recent circle, it's doing great for people. So we'll try and bring in on both levels. So on LinkedIn, I'm Ciara Hamagishi. On Instagram and all other platforms, my business is called Kiyoko Verde. So it's my middle name and green in Spanish. So you can find me on there. I'm most active definitely on Instagram right now. And then the business circle, it opens 3 times a year. So if you know the quarters, whenever we're going into a new quarter in business, that's when it opens. We've set the vision together. So we're setting one in July. It'll be October. And then going into January and right before April. So every time we open a new quarter, it's a new time to join the business circle. And otherwise, there's a wait list in between. And I'm also starting to do human design circles, which will probably become more, right now, they're more pop up. And at some point, I'd like to be more regular. So even if you don't have a business, but you want to be aligned in like parenthood or your relationship or career, that's the next thing I have coming up too. So I always love circles. I like intimate communities where there's enough space to share, but where they're not like huge and you still kind of know everyone in it. So that's my sweet spot.
Oh, so beautiful. Yeah, I feel like the intimate circles and communities feel safer. And I think people open up and you can connect deeper with the people there. So I love that so much. I will link every single thing in the show notes, including your Instagram, your LinkedIn, a link to your business circles. And Ciara, thank you so much for joining me today. This was such a beautiful conversation.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. And yeah, I'm excited. I love listening to all these episodes about people's journey back to yourself. These stories are just, yeah, they're just permission pretty much to trust yourself if we go full circle on that. So thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Yes. Permission is the big word that comes across in every single episode. So thank you for being another woman's permission to really follow her path and to trust herself and lean more into human design. And for anyone listening to the podcast, please go ahead and rate, subscribe, share with your community. And as always, I will see you for another episode next Thursday.